while you're doing that, I'm Glenn Haussman. I host the No Vacancy podcast. You can find all of my stuff on LinkedIn. I'll also be back up here at 10 a.m. talking about how we are going to keep humanity in hospitality as we become so much more technological. All right, so let's hear over here, Miss Aimee Fyke, COO at Tharaldson Hospitality. Then over here, we got Fred Brandstrader, VP of Construction and Capital Expenses with Hyatt. And Jason Cruce, SVP and Head of Hotel Development with Starwood Capital. Let's hear it for all these guys over there. How you doing today?
Very good.
Excellent.
Good
Fred, I just want to start with you. We had a conversation. I think it's important to point out that Fred is talking from the point of view today of hotels owned by Hyatt, which is distinction from the entire portfolio of Hyatt. So,
yeah, you know, there's 1,300 Hyatt branded hotels across the globe. We own about a couple of dozen of those, mostly in the U.S., Europe, Brazil, Mexico. Those are the equity hotels. That is my team's responsibility. You know, the capex, renovations, any acquisitions that we may buy and then, you know, hold for a while and then flip. Those are the ones that are in my wheelhouse.
Excellent. So, Aimee, let me jump over to you. What is the biggest thing that you're thinking about right now when it comes to exploring the future of hotel development and design?
I think trying to get costs down, you know, and we're seeing a lot of challenges with the interest rates. And I was sharing with Fred that we started our portfolio in 2011 with 18 hotels, and today we're at 87 open, and we've done all of ours from ground up construction with the exception, I think, of one or two. So
that's an amazing growth.
Yeah, it's
being all new build like that. That's
Yep.
It's a lot.
So we do all different brands, some Hyatt, Hilton, very Marriott eccentric, you know, IHG. So we've got a really broad base of the different brands.
Right, and you focus mostly on select service?
All select service, mostly extended stay.
Is your philosophy with working with different brands based on more of availability in the market, what will suit that market? How do you think about that?
Yes, so when we do our land acquisition, we find a good market and we see what other brands are there. We have our favorites, and as I said, extended stay is our kind of sweet spot. And if we can't do a Marriott, we'll look at a Hilton.
Yep.
If we can't do a Hilton, we'll look at IHG, and that's kind of how we started. But we have our preferences.
Yeah. How many brands do you have to go through before you'll open up a branch of the Haussman Resort Pool Club and Smokehouse?
I think we
all right.
We got a lot there.
All right. Don't answer that question. My ego can't handle it. Jason,
Good
could you
morning.
do us a favor? Share a little bit with what brands you're working on for folks that don't understand what Starwood Capital does, because it gets a little confusing with all different Starwood names
Well,
out there.
yes, the Starwood selling to Marriott is added to confusion, but Starwood has been around for what, 24 years. We're a private equity firm. We're 50% owner of Extended Stay America with Blackstone. We have almost 400 select service hotels that we asset manage for our investors, and then we own 3 or 4 ones, a portfolio of Radissons, and some other assets in Europe. And so we're part owner. I think we own 2 Nomades in Mexico. So it's a very kind of diverse portfolio.
Yeah.
But so we touch a little bit of everything, I guess.
No, and I think that's pretty cool that you touch a little bit of everything. I love companies that either, you know, specialize in one type of thing or are more generalists, because in your case, you get a very global understanding of what's happening. When you're dealing with an extended stay property, the margins are much thinner, the models are much different. So it's an extremely different discipline to build, own, and operate those properties as it might be from a one hotel, for example.
Yeah, I mean, we were sitting in our biannual asset management meeting the other day talking about, you know, what levers we can pull at extended stay, and you've got to pull that lever really hard, and you've got to do it, you know, 1,000 times to just get out another, you know, $30-40 million in a year across that portfolio. It's become even more difficult sort of post-COVID, you know, extended stay, and had its sort of height, like the height of the industry was seemed to be during COVID. Everyone was out
for sure,
driving around.
Yeah, Jason, that was a time, in my opinion, when even though extended stay's been around for a long time, and go back to Residence Inn, all the brands that Jack DeBoer created, it was during the period of COVID where all of a sudden, all you folks in the general hospitality industry went, "Oh my God, what a great development idea!" And since then, we've seen an explosion in extended stay hotels. Just last week, I was with Choice Hotels opening their 500th extended stay property in Everhome. A few weeks before that, I was in Salt Lake for Liveaway Suites, a brand new brand. So that is a huge area right now that people are getting excited about.
Yeah.
What are you most excited about in terms of the own portfolio for Hyatt and where you can take it and do?
Well, the own portfolio is not, it's full service.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
But just to jump on that, from the Hyatt perspective, with just the Hyatt Studios is
correct.
Yet another piles onto the Hyatt Place, Hyatt House brand. So yeah, the extended stay market for sure is what's growing.
And let me just do a shameless plug. Check out my interview with Jason Ballard, who runs that brand. I just put it up on LinkedIn a week or so ago on the LinkedIn page. Yeah.
But from the owned assets, we are drilling into the sustainability aspects of how we can improve that. There is definitely a marketability aspect of it. We see a connection to guests and efforts we are doing, in terms of not only operational sustainable efforts, but what we're doing in our renovations and so forth. We, as a company, the push on all-inclusive full, the luxury resorts, making great strides in that. And while we don't own any of the standard hotel portfolio, that is kind of the vision of
for sure. And I would say after extended stay, all-inclusive is the next most exciting category, particularly in areas of the Caribbean. You would have thought that was already built out, but it's expanding in such an incredible, meaningful way right now. There's so much opportunity. But I want to talk to you about sustainability since you mentioned it. I found over the last number of years, Fred, that you don't have to make a choice between sustainability and the expenditures that you're putting out there. I think hoteliers are finally realizing that if you make the right investments, you can actually save money and increase profitability at the same time.
100%. And I think it could just be myself personally of the network expanding. I think nowadays with companies like MindClick and the Green Key and all that, there's data gathering to help us make decisions on materiality and or processes of renovations. That stuff wasn't around 5+ years ago.
Yeah, I think MindClick only started 5-6 years ago.
So I personally very bullish on that type of approach of using that kind of data-driven info to help make decisions, because absolutely there's guest feedback that has been real positive.
Right now, the full service hotels, it's really essential in order to get those meeting planners and those people engaged, right? So it's not even a want to anymore, it's a must.
Absolutely. Yeah. We just renovated, rebranded it was the Hotel Irvine in Irvine, California. Converted it back to the Hyatt Regency. It was way back in its history. Did a lot of that aspect as far as the environmental efforts on during the renovation and processes, and it's been a huge driver of group business. The hotel's been able to capitalize on that.
Right. And speaking of sustainability, I mean, I just got to go to one hotels because that's kind of like the focus of that brand.
That's brand.
Not just taking,
that's the
not
mantra.
just not just doing sustainability, but really thinking about it. And when I was at the property in Miami last January, I was blown away by the design, because you were able to include all of these natural elements like repurposed wood as the desk and stuff like that in a really creative way that to me felt like it belonged there, as opposed to you're trying to force a design aesthetic onto something.
Yeah, I won't take any credit for that. There's a whole design team, but
I just said what to take
credit.
No.
Look, the designers, they should take the credit. But it is the core value of the brand We try not to use any synthetic materials.
Mhm.
If it doesn't come out of the earth, kind of, it doesn't go into the building. And yeah, wherever we can use reclaimed wood when we're developing, we do. You mentioned you saw that in the furniture. All of the teak furniture in Honolulu is reclaimed teak
Wow.
from Indonesia. So we didn't go harvest any new teak for any of that stuff. So it's just part of the DNA of the brand, and
That's gonna have a ripple effect across the board in over time. That kind of a mind thinking and approach to how to do hospitality.
Yeah.
It's great that they're out in front doing that.
you know, you were speaking about your project, your solar installation earlier, but you know, not only is all that sustainable, but it also sets us up for resiliency in the development that we're doing. We're less reliant on the public utility grids
Right.
when something does go wrong, when the Miltons or the Andrews or whoever, whatever the name of the year is, comes through, right? Like you can get back to business sooner, even, you know, when there is an emergency, we can offer our infrastructure, right, to the community at large around. There's prior to closing Honolulu, there was actually a storm that came through, and we're able to feed everyone in the community and stuff. So
That's pretty
I
awesome.
think that it's important for what we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Aimee?
Yeah, so we're building our second Element by Marriott that was a Westin hotel
Yep.
that Starwood owned, but that brand is another brand that's all, you know, sustainability and
I think it's like really having a resurgence. When it first came out, it was there, and then it kind of like settled down in the background. But now it seems to be coming up again in terms of
I think
notoriety.
I think they're getting a lot of traction around the sustainability piece, but you know, from an operations standpoint, we're seeing a lot of a lot of our clients requiring it. So from the RFP process, it is become an expectation. So it's not just you know, well, let's try to move towards LED lighting, or these decision makers are saying this is extremely important to us. If you want our business, you've got to make sure that you check these boxes.
Yeah. Plus, we keep hearing again that people are making their stay decisions based on that. I still think that's more wishful thinking than the reality of it, because I think location beats all. But when it comes to meetings, it's an absolute must-have. Now, one of the other things that like one hotel's doing that I think is interesting is beyond the infrastructure itself, they're thinking about sustainability and how that could be implemented. Well, one part of the infrastructure is in the room, there's fresh water taps, so you can make coffee and tea. All of the all the supplies are compostable. They give you something that you can bring home, throw it in the ground, and has a seed, and it'll grow stuff out there. So it's done in a really open way. So when you're thinking about sustainability, it doesn't just have to be what you build, but it could be ways that you operate the hotel as well. That's there. Tell us a little bit about the solar power thing that we were talking about off stage.
There's an opportunity that's good. It's going to be the first, not only for the portfolio, but for myself personally. Our Miraval, Arizona Resort and Spa, you know, it's one of the, you know, premier wellness type of resorts.
Yeah.
And we have an
It was
opportunity.
like them and Canyon Ranch at the beginning, right?
One of my favorite properties personally as well, but right there at the bottom of Mount Lemon. But yeah, we said, let's take a look at, you know, we've got all this land. And initially it was like, how big can we do this to maybe, you know, help some of the surrounding community? We're phasing it because there's all kinds of there's a whole hornet's nest of regulations and stuff to have to do that. So we're like, well, let's get in, let's take the hotel off the grid and build it so that, you know, we can add on if it's going smoothly and the community and the utilities all dance together nicely. But yeah, so that's the effort. So we're kicking it off this, just awarded it, and looking forward to that. And then similarly in our Miraval Austin project on water that's a big issue in that part of Austin, that Lake Travis area, and we're at the very beginning of trying to figure out a more sustainable way of getting water and using water at that property. So goes along with the brand mission, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think the right attitude to take when it comes to sustainability is you don't have to do everything all at once. I really see this as a series of improvements over time,
Yeah,
right, Aimee?
yeah, we just, so since 2011, we took all of our hotels and put them onto a new platform for our heating and air conditioning.
Yeah.
We're using a system called Verdant. And the cool thing is you can go and check the temperature of room 301 in Sacramento, California from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yeah.
Wow.
So the technology to see every single room, we've got 10,000 rooms across the platform to see if an air conditioning system is working or not working, or if somebody left the AC on. So we've invested a lot of capital towards, making sure that we're getting it right fit.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
also
a-
saw, I
that-
saw, yeah.
I was going to say that's
Right.
a great example just of the operations because we're kind of doing similar things. The other benefit of that is, with our area DOEs, they can monitor multiple properties that are in their whatever mile radius of hotels that they're overseeing, and it makes a huge impact on your operating cost.
Yeah, and Fred, you touched on the water piece, and another investment we've made just in the last year is with a company, Simmons Group, out of Boston, and we
That's a Simmons with a Y.
yes,
right?
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
and you put these little sensors on your water, and
The smart meters,
the
yeah.
engineering
Yeah.
team gets alerts. There's nothing worse than having a hotel sold out and having all your guests have no hot water the next morning. So this gives us the opportunity to jump in front of a problem, alert them, technology, all wireless, and helping again with the water piece. If we have leaks,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
detects all of that. So using technology to promote sustainability has
Yeah.
been a big win.
Yeah, that water leak technology is pretty amazing because it's one of those things that you didn't even realize you had a problem a lot of times until it's put in place. And then you're like, oh, wow, we could save all of this money and do more on the environment. If you guys want to look at one really forward-looking, environmentally focused hotel, I recommend checking out in New Haven, Connecticut, the Hotel Marcel. It was originally built as a corporate facility for Pirelli tires. I think it had another name before that, before Pirelli bought that company. And it's like it's a Bauhaus design building with brutalist architecture. It's absolutely incredible. It says like 1972 all over everything, but they're off the grid. They have solar power. They've backup batteries. They've got all of the electric chargers, so they're perfectly situated right off I-95. People come in, they park their cars, they charge the cars, and then they go eat and drink
Right.
in the restaurant,
Right,
and
get
they
back to their
help
car.
make money,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
And that's so important. All right, you all out there have a question at this point? Hotel Marcel, Marcel in New Haven, Connecticut. It's absolutely fantastic. I got a video coming out soonish on on that project. So when you're thinking about exploring the development, design, and construction, Aimee, you had talked about interest rates. They're still too high. When I was at the lodging conference last week, it was fresh off of interest rates being lowered 0.5%. And I think the general opinion there was, yeah, it's moving things forward, but not enough. And I think that gets to what your comment was. What will need to happen, and why is it not enough right now?
Well, it's twofold. You have cost to build are skyrocketing.
Yep.
So, for example, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we were building an extended stay hotel for $200,000 a key.
Yeah.
Today, it's
I was
$350,000.
going to say 350. Yeah.
So you can't really pencil a deal with the interest rates and the cost of construction as high as it is, and it's kind of helped our company pump the brakes a little bit because it's just not, again, for what we're trying to do.
Well, you're focused on new construction.
Yes, all new construction, but even the cost to buy an acquisition, do an acquisition, while it seems attractive, the PIP process for these other brands make it very cost prohibitive.
Right. Excellent. Jason, you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, so I think it's sort of an attack on all fronts
Yeah.
in the moment. So you've got high interest rates, you've got high land values in a lot of markets, right? Labor rates
I was going to say labor
just
for sure.
Yeah.
kind of on a hyperbolic path at the moment, and so there's just uncertainty across the board that's making everyone a little gun shy. You know,
Yeah.
the bid ask spread
Yeah.
is pretty wide still, and so the market's gonna remain silent, I think. For
Although I do hear rumors that
stability
the
there.
money that's been sitting on the sideline for the last 30 years of my career will actually come off the sidelines.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, we've got a lot of dry powder at Starwood. It's finding the right deal.
Yep.
You know, the capital markets still have relatively low loan to value ratios that they're putting out there. Interest rates remain elevated, and so you know, again, along with escalating labor rates, it's a challenging environment.
Yeah, totally. And because of this challenging environment, I see all challenging environments as opportunity yet to be gained. Because when other people are feeling challenged, that's a great chance for you to come in. In the depths of the COVID crisis, for example, Tyler Morse with MCR went on a buying spree, buying a bunch of hotels in New York City, for example, because he knew New York would come back. Now, we don't all have that kind of capital to be able to deploy. Maybe you guys do. But you have to think about what is always coming next. And I think in our industry, we have a tendency to be very stuck in the right now. We have a tendency to hear people on stage and then just take that as sacrosanct and not really look into the critical thinking that we need to do in order to find pathways to success. And those pathways to success, I think, bring us back to that extended stay scenario, which seems to be less money to build. You could get them out of the ground quicker, and you could create more of an income flow because of the fewer people. How are you negotiating all of this in the full serve universe right now?
Well, I think all four of us probably travel a lot, right?
Yeah.
And we're in airports a lot. And I don't know about you, but every airport I'm in is busy, no matter what
Crazy
day of the
busy.
week, what time of day.
Right.
So, you know, people are still traveling and they're staying in hotels.
And let me just add one point to that. People will tell you that the economy is not doing well, et cetera, et cetera. But my ability to get an upgrade has plummeted over the last few years, which tells me there are people out there on planes every single day.
Using their miles,
Right.
Their card, yeah. No, so people, group business is not fully back, but it's definitely trending back. And
I think it's definitely been the highlight over the last 2 years.
absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, from the full service standpoint, you know, full service, you know, there's get them in the hotel, the F&B component, you know, that profit margin and attraction to keep them at the hotel. But there's, the fact is that there's still people traveling, so like we got to capitalize on it.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that we forget that there's probably more people traveling now than there ever has been before. But we tend to be in a position where we don't think that's true because there's also so many more hotels than there ever was before.
Not only hotels. I mean, don't forget that Airbnb is an enormous distractor. I shouldn't even use that term. Like, they're not a distractor anymore.
They're a factor.
They're a given.
Yeah.
You know, they're a platform. We chase rate with them sometimes, especially in Hawaii. And it's a factor. Like, say that's a third of the global room availability, right? That's taken a third of the people that would have normally gone into a hotel out of a hotel.
And it's certainly an age thing. My kids are all late 20s, travel around. Airbnb is like, you know, it's going to a Marriott, going to a Hyatt. It's Airbnb is their first choice. Like, where am I looking?
I think that's starting to change now because they'll say $150 a night and then there's an $800 cleaning fee on top of that.
Yeah.
And people are realizing that hotels are better. But I will say, to say what you're saying is I think the hotel industry ignored that for so long because pre-COVID we had something like 110 months in a row of increasing ADRs, which led us to believe that that wasn't really an issue. But traveling was just such a big deal then, it kind of hid that issue from us. And when COVID hit, it woke us up to, oh, maybe there is something about that. Maybe there is something about extended stay and more.
The other thing that's happened, and this is HotelSpaces, not Airbnb spaces, but it kind of got away from the municipalities, and so investment buyers are coming in, buying homes where our employees would normally be living, and put them out for Airbnb, and so it's created in certain communities like Palm Springs and on Kauai, and I'm sure other islands. I'm sure it's just created a lack of available housing inventory. And so now we have sort of an exacerbated labor crisis taking place in some of these communities. Jackson, Wyoming is another good example of that. Any ski community, right? And so
No one's living there.
resort developers and we're trying to back solve for this housing issue now, which has led us to building housing for our employees as part of what would be a normal, or a resort development.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So, Aimee, I want to get back to the development design and construction aspect of it. How are you thinking about that in terms of prices being higher with building brand prototypes? You're on a lot of boards, for example. Are you thinking about how they might be able to tweak the prototypes in order to be more affordable? What are some of the top of mind issues there?
Yeah, so on the boards that I sit on, I was just in a meeting last week in Baltimore with Residents Inn, and there's a lot of talk about how do we cut costs without, not cutting service and that, the price value. And as owners, we're constantly challenging the brands to say, hey, let's look at this. What do we need to do that has the most impact? From an operations standpoint, again, to just reiterate, if you ask me what I'm worried about with the hotel industry moving forward is the margins, and top of mind is the headwinds we face with the labor.
For sure, yeah.
Inflation, labor is just huge, and the legislative stuff that's happening with minimum wages, and it's really made us look at all of our markets and say, hey, do we want to be here?
Right.
We want to look at other markets where it's not, union centric, et cetera.
Yeah, and that gets to be a tricky scenario for sure. Because the fact of the matter is, places in like California, will have a much higher minimum wage, and there's nothing wrong with people getting a living wage, and I happen to be a big proponent in that. However, you can't deny the financial issues that have occurred on the property because of that. So I see this in two ways. Number one, the higher wages are actually getting to people to quit Amazon, come back to the hospitality industry, which I think is going to be very helpful in the future. But I also see things at select service hotels, for example, where we can lower the number of full-time employees if done correctly without affecting customer experience. That's kind of what I'm going to be talking about this morning at 10 o'clock. But Aimee, how are you thinking about that particular issue in order to save?
So, you see the operators ask if you don't want room service every day, your room clean, we'll give you a credit. So we try to do that. I think post-COVID, one of the best thing is that we were able to, when we stopped doing daily room service and we stopped serving food for our social hours, that's one of the things that, not bringing that back has definitely helped.
Yeah.
And then trying to figure out ways to optimize labor productivity through, if it's incentivizing the guests to not have their room cleaned every day, and they put the green, again, using the sustainability, the green flag in the bathroom, if you don't have your towels on the floor. So really trying to educate the customer on ways that they can save money and that help us from a labor perspective.
Like the two big ones are housekeeping and then maintenance. And
Right.
To your earlier point, like if we can use technology to help the maintenance staff to be smarter, there's less maintenance people on properties typically these days, but you got to maintain the property. So you get a lower staff cost, but they still got to keep the hotel up. So use technology to let them know when and where to go.
Yeah, one of my sponsors who's not here, so I won't name them. They focus on labor management and really helping you figure out the amount of hours it's going to take in order to do that. Plus, they help with retaining employees because you could set schedules and all of that and create a much more flexible work environment for those particular people. I want to go back to, since we've talked, I think, enough about labor, and we're really here to talk about development, design, and construction. How are you thinking about designing buildings right now in order to save money? I'm seeing a lot of the major brand prototypes shrink the rooms in order to save money, but that's not necessarily going to lead towards better customer experiences in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're always looking for ways to minimize back of house and sort of non-core revenue generating space. High efficiency materials, high efficiency MEP and MEP systems. Just it's speaking to margin. It's anywhere you can save $1, whether it's utility expense or initial construction costs. Work smarter and not harder. The technology is finally coming into the construction space. I think it's probably one of the least teched out portions of industry, and whether it's OxBlue or PlanGrid or all of these businesses that are out there, they're helping us do what we do more efficiently and smarter. Not to plug OxBlue, but I'm in a construction claim case right now, and because we had that software or the cameras in place, I can literally go through every day of the development sequence and tell you whether there was a window on a room or not, and it's proven totally invaluable to our defense of a claim. So
particularly because you can monitor what's going on from wherever you are in the country. So not only is it saving on the actual costs, but it's saving on all the associated costs. You having to fly there a lot, downtime for you not being able to be productive.
Yeah, in Honolulu, our design architect was Lake Flato in San Antonio, and they could just log in and kind of see real time what the
less carbon footprint on the plane.
Right. That's a really great point too, which helps add to all of your credits.
Yeah, that's a real thing too.
It also helps me with the executives, because they see an 18-month construction schedule and their minds are blown. How can it take that long? You're just changing the porte cochere of a hotel. It's like, okay, well, you can log in and watch in real time.
Yeah. So. Well, that's cool. Well, if you got Disney involved, it would take 5 years. So you got that. How are you thinking about construction these days with ways to try to save money in the process that'll keep yielding your results as the years go by?
Well, our big buzzword, and I don't know if you guys, I'm sure you're hearing it at your companies too, is your agile ways of how can you do things more effectively, efficiently. We're trying to figure out, implement things to shorten up our design and construction process to get the jobs done so that they can start returning on the investment. I think you hit it on the head when you said, this technology meeting construction, windows are better, HVAC systems are better.
Right.
That ultimately, you might pay a little bit more for it now, but your operational costs in the long run.
For sure. When I was at the TWA hotel at JFK Airport, I've never seen better windows in my life. Or I should say I've never heard better windows, because the airplanes are taking off right over there and you can't hear a thing. That reduces the noise complaints. That makes the people stay a lot better and enhances the experience.
Yeah. I mean, we did all the windows at the Park Hyatt Chicago because it was built when it was built, and we're right by all the hospitals. That was the number one guest complaint.
The sirens?
Windows, changed the windows. Not only did it improve the thermal load in the rooms, but it was a guest experience changer.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Aimee, at Tharaldson, forgive me, do you guys have dual branded hotels? Good. And that helps me. I love dual branded hotels. If we're talking about the future of hotel development, design, and construction, these are winners, particularly in the select service environment. I've even seen a couple of triple branded hotels. For those of you who don't know, started off as an owner would have a hotel in the parking lot, and then on the other side of the parking lot, they put another hotel. Then they kind of put the buildings closer together and kind of had a common space, but you had to go to different sides of the building. Now it's like different floors, and they're really yielding those savings. That's got to help you big time because you're able to appeal toward different audiences or a different product, typically a select service matched with an extended stay product, and it's cheaper to run in aggregate, right?
Yes. So I'm thinking about a hotel we have right outside of Denver, and it's a dual branded Hilton hotel. They use the same laundry room.
Yeah, same
It-
infrastructure.
Everything is the same public space. The outdoor experience is all the same. And so the margins are much better in where we can take those efficiencies and have it. And I think that we have another dual branded hotel at Baltimore in Hanover at the airport. And we bought that one. That was one that we acquired. And we were able to really utilize a lot of the common space between the two properties, one bar for both hotels, give the customers a much better experience. While if you want an extended stay room, we've got that. And if you want to select, a transient room, we've got that. So I think there's a lot of efficiencies. We also did a dual branded hotel in Las Vegas. We did a 172 room Hilton Garden Inn and a 158 room Homewood. They share the parking deck and the pool. That's it. But we put that on 3 acres, which is almost unheard of.
Yeah.
And using the outdoor experience space has been huge, and those hotels are doing very, very well. So
right. So not only are you, generally speaking, are you yielding savings by doing these, but because you have so many more people in it, you're able to create programs, even in a select service atmosphere, that gets people to spend more money. And because we have such high, RevPAR and ADR as far as the consumer is concerned, this helps you think about it differently, really get into that understanding the value per customer as opposed to value per room. Right.
And yes, and cost of the employee. You can get more productivity out of an employee and dual branded and use them in both the hotels. So trying to, again, manage that labor cost. Because for us, our largest expenditure item is labor, besides principal reduction. And so we have really got to get our arms around that piece. And that's the reality of it, is the labor model and being able to use those folks for both hotels.
Yeah. So how do you guys think when it comes to this labor issue, again, how are you thinking about like those retainment issues? Because, according to the government, it costs something like $6,000-7,000 in soft and hard costs just to replace a person. So you really want to keep them. Plus you lose that institutional knowledge.
Absolutely. And having to train someone new is not only, all the time the rest of the staff has to do. It's probably the most important thing is the retainage.
Yeah.
How do you work it out? I keep going back to the hotel staff that I deal with the most is the engineering staff, and it's a huge challenge because, back early in my career, there always seemed to be like engineering teams at hotels, and it's just not the case anymore.
Yeah.
And they're either new people who don't have the institutional knowledge of the property or even the experience, don't know how to run their HVAC systems and stuff. So yeah, I think finding good talent and then retaining them, absolutely.
I found a company. I'm totally blanking about.
Forget the union stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not, other people deal with that.
Yeah.
But it's just.
Yeah, I found one company. I had a couple of conversations with them where if someone's leaving, they capture all that institutional knowledge, so they can be able to tell whoever comes in the room that whoever comes in the role that in room 222, for example, it makes a little weird noise, but that's okay, and you don't have to go and investigate a problem. All these like little
hit the wall
things,
right,
exactly.
Yeah.
All of that kind of stuff that really helps cut out all of the problem-solving time and get you, right to that solution. So, Aimee, when it comes to development, then how are you thinking about where to go in the country right now? Costs are higher to build, but you're a company, you've got to keep doing development. So, what is your solution right now?
We look at high barriers to entry, and because to the point earlier, there's so many new brands, right? Everybody's coming out with a new brand. And so we don't want to go into a market and have another developer come in and pop up a hotel right next to us. So we always look at high barriers to entry, and then we're looking at, again, great brands. We affiliate ourselves with the best brands that we think are in the industry. And again, just trying to focus on looking at labor and the cost to build. So when we go into these markets, we have a very high concentration in California. And a lot of people ask, well, why, there's so many labor issues in California, a very litigious state. But the reality is the cost to build versus, and building a hotel in the Midwest or in the Northeast right now, we can drive higher rates. And at the end of the day, if you can't get the rate, you're not going to make the margins. So we like California for that aspect of it. But again, it's making it very difficult. So we look at all those different aspects.
Yep. All right, I got a follow-up question, but I want to see if you guys have a question out there. Anyone? Anyone?
So with Aimee's mentioned the higher cost to build a new building or the cost per key, what are the brands doing to offset that with renovation cycles? You mentioned sustainability, which is great, but I don't know if the typical guest will pay an extra $40 a night because the wood's been reclaimed. So what are the brands doing to help the developers develop more?
For us, we've just done 12 renovations in our company, and what they're doing is they accelerated during COVID. They stopped making us do the 7-year, 14-year renovations, and now they're trying to play catch up. So they incentivize the developers to get these deals, these PIPs and renovations done more timely, and it saved us a lot of money by going ahead and executing those renovations. But they're all going back to a cyclical 7, 14, 21 year. And where it gets a little tricky is if you do go to sell the relicensing, they can either say, well, if you're going to do the PIP and renovate, it's a 15-year relicense. If you're going to go sell, change of control, 10 years. So you really have to, we talked about this earlier, you have to have really good relationships with the brands and try to negotiate like you're doing another deal. So they're trying, they want as much as they can to get their product to be competitive with their competitors and seeing what everybody else is doing. But I think that for the most part, that's what we're seeing. We just accelerated it and tried to get it done at a less cost than what they're required now.
And I know I just started off saying I'm not a brand guy, but I do know our brand people, to your point, want to help the third party owner and get the deal done. So I know our brand folks try to be as flexible as possible on that.
Yeah, that's across the board. I think, look, the brands are very accommodating during COVID and let us not invest as much as we normally would have over those cycles. And now it's all coming back, and in some instances there's an urgent need. I think I have a handful of assets going through my head, right, where they're very collaboratively working with us to come up with what the right program is to make sure that their brand is remaining competitive in that specific marketplace, and then kind of taking some of the optional stuff off the table or deferring it even further. And so it just depends, obviously, on the asset, but they've been very accommodating, and we're partners in all of this, right? So at the end of the day, what makes us more revenue makes them more revenue. So you have to keep that
for sure. I do want to throw out, I don't think anyone's going to any hotel particularly because of reclaimed wood. I certainly didn't, but when I got to the one hotel in Miami Beach and I was immersed in that situation, it really added to what the brand is all about in terms of communication to me. And it was so meaningful that I'm still remembering it here a year later and talking about it because it connected with me, because it was very much about the brand identity. And that's what I was able to connect with as a customer. And while I would never have booked a room because of it, seeing the design and how it all came together added to my experience, which will make me want to pay more and come back there again.
And hopefully you book direct.
Because Yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely. I would never use a third party booker. I would also like
And
to
the
add.
service was there.
Yeah, the brand really understands what it is because,
Yeah.
from my understanding, you correct me if I'm wrong, but the philosophy of it is take all of us 20-something kids who went to W in the 90s. Where are we now in life, and how can we enjoy a hotel now that we're older and don't necessarily want to party and drink by the pool in the same way as we used to? Still do, just a little bit differently.
I think that's specific to South Beach, that experience.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned partying,
Yeah.
but that's part of it, certainly. Yeah.
Also, the 20% required tip. Always look out for that. All right. So we're getting close to the end, but I'm curious. Have any of you thought about modular? Marriott was into it for a real long time. So, anyone thinking about that?
We did a modular product in Folsom, California. We did a Marriott, and I thought it was really well built. The costs weren't, the savings weren't as significant as we had anticipated. So we ended up not pursuing it.
That's really a shame. It seems to me like it's the technology that just isn't quite there yet. Jason,
It's in its venture stage, is what I'll say. We do have a development in Sunnyvale that it's a 6-story modular tower. May have been slightly too aggressive with the design. Certainly didn't pick the right partner to do the modular construction, and it's not as sophisticated as you might think. It's guys doing traditional construction on a factory floor and then putting it on a truck, and there's those added layers. And yes, you can control the labor, but the savings just haven't been realized in either time or money. And so
that's the mystique, right? Everyone, initially it was all at the same time. But overall, start of idea of the project to when a guest is in the bed, it's the same time frame. You're just, you're spending way more time up here, and the construction period is less. But overall, it's ultimately the same time frame.
There are guys that are starting. Shouldn't say guys. There are people that are starting to figure this out. It's almost exclusively in a space that's like 4 stories or less, right? So that you're not getting into anything but your Type 5 construction, and
that's cool. That's I mean, that's what it's going to. I totally agree. I went to a prefab conference last year because we were trying to figure out how actually at the Maribel in Arizona, we're doing a modular spa expansion, some pods, but it's not a typical stackable prefab thing. But I wanted to go learn about it. There was one other hotel person there at this conference, and it was with a brand that was known for doing modular, high rise, mid rise, and they're not doing it anymore.
Right.
And the gentleman was kind of his last hurrah. Had a lot of experience with it, but he's like, we can't. It's not penciling. We have to stop doing it.
Wow.
But did see a lot of very cool things that I think over time
it will become a thing.
Yeah, it will become a thing.
I think AI is going to definitely make a big difference there.
Yeah.
I think also this big push into ADUs and affordable housing, like that is the initial market for this modular construction. And once they iron out all the kinks, it'll scale up to a level where it can really
because part of the issues are you have to have the factories in locations where it makes financial sense, but they also must be close enough to the location of final hotels in order for it all to pencil out correctly.
We're getting these from Utah. For Tucson.
Yeah, so we're kind of in that little in between time on that one. I got a lot more to talk about, but we're almost out of time, incredibly enough. So we'll just head to some final thoughts. Aimee, what do you want us to take away from this today?
I think from our perspective, I think that AI is going to be a big player in the hotel industry, not just from a construction standpoint, but from a revenue management standpoint. I think we have to just look at the way we do business and how can we do things differently to be better, and constantly think about every single project we're doing and how we can optimize every single dollar. To your point, Jason.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Oh, I mean, we touched on retention, but I would say it is very disruptive when your team rotates. And so, to the extent any of you are managers, mentor your people. Make sure that you're engaged with them and that they're engaged with you. Give them new opportunities, and that will foster sort of the community or the team that you're looking for, and will help on that retention basis.
Yeah. Aimee, are you finding that when people come into hotel level positions, they even have a clue that this whole universe of the hotel business exists? Because I feel like our biggest problem with retention is people don't realize there's positions above general manager.
Yeah, I think that when they see opportunity, that definitely helps with the retention piece for us. And we like to, from in our company, we have 2,500 employees. Our first preference is always to promote from within.
Yeah.
And so we show them, look at the success story. Myself included, I've walked in all of your shoes, and they feel the connectivity to that. So creating that kind of culture that there is opportunity, and the hotel business is a grind. It's tough,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So-
Well, it seems like everything worthwhile is the grind. Final thoughts or comment on that as well?
Yeah, that's one of the great things about the hospitality industry, though. You can start here and work your way through.
Yep.
Lots of people at Hyatt are like that.
So many CEOs started off schlepping bags,
Yeah,
right?
and which is a great story.
Yeah.
I'd say, for me, big takeaway is very focused ESG, environmental, the carbon footprint, the social impact, donating furniture for affordable housing, that kind of stuff. And governance, as far as making sure we're working with vendors who, child labor laws and all that. That is a focus for us in our capex.
Yeah, excellent. So what did we learn today? The hospitality industry is the coolest freaking business on the planet, in my opinion, because there's so much that we could do. And while there are challenges out there in the market, there are challenges in every single industry ever. But we have opportunity out there. It's just a matter of the way you see it. By engaging our employees, we can keep them longer to reduce costs. By implementing new technologies, we could find out ways to reduce costs. And who would have thought that focusing on sustainability can not only be more profitable, but it could be a successful brand differentiator. And at the end of the day, that's what we're really talking about, creating amazing experiences that are going to get customers to think of your hotels first and get them to come back time and time again. Let's hear it for this amazing panel over here. How great are they? I want to thank you guys.